Hey everyone, welcome to Bitcoin 101. This presentation is called The Life of Bitcoin. We're going to be going through brief history of Bitcoin, money, where it came from, what it is, and how to use it as well. Hey everyone, welcome to Bitcoin. Just going to mute that, and then we'll kind of keep going here. We got one viewer now. Everyone left as soon as my face popped up. Just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. They've been coming in and going, so it's not a big deal. So first and foremost, the biggest thing, this is not financial advice. Take it at your own whim. And we're not financial advisors, so please do your own research. So we got a couple definitions that we're going to be going over and what they all stand for, what they all are. So we'll start from the top and we'll kind of move our way down here. So we have HODL, hold on for dear life. It's a actual misspelling of hold on or just hold, and it became a meme and is now associated with Bitcoin culture. Wallet is a program that allows an individual to interact with the Bitcoin network. Proof of work is a system that requires significant work to prevent malicious attacks on the Bitcoin network, or in this case, malicious use of computing power. Hash is a mathematical function that converts an input of arbitrary length into an encrypted output or fixed length. Open source, the source code is publicly available. Mempool or memory pool is a small database of pending transactions that every node carries. Miner, it's a software that's used to solve transaction-related algorithms. Node, a computer on the Bitcoin network that broadcasts, relays information to other nodes and miners. Public key is your receiving address, and then private key is used to transfer or sign your transactions on the Bitcoin network. Public ledger, publicly available record system. Fiat, money not backed by a commodity, and is declared by decree by the government to be legal tender. Hard money backed by a commodity such as gold or silver. And then we have peer-to-peer, individual to individual, me to you. So just an overview of what this is going to be about. So we're going to do a brief history on money, the fiat system, then we're going to be going over what Bitcoin is, how and where to get Bitcoin, doing your first transaction, how the transaction actually works, and then what you can do with Bitcoin once you have it. So we're going to start with the brief history of money. This is an interesting one. So in 1200 BC, we were using seashells, namely in China, as currency. They were used for decorative purposes, jewelry, or general decorations. And then the first metal money is seen in 1000 BC. It looks like these metal rings up here. For those of you on the stream, that's the second picture in the top there. And then at about 600 BC, we see the first actual minted metal coin. It was made in what is now present-day Turkey, and it has a lion on it. And then we see the Roman bank, so they did private lending and capital pools and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. That was at 300 BC. That's a long time ago. And then we have paper money, so invented in China about 1000 AD. We see the first paper money start to surge. It was in the Tang Dynasty. And then at about 1400 AD, we start to see banking becoming mainstream across Europe. Started kind of in Italy and kind of made its way. So, and it was largely used in the northern parts of Italy, which are typically more richer and have a lot more money. In 1816, we see the gold standard start in Britain. It was followed in 1900 by the United States. And then in 1913, the Federal Reserve is created, and it was created to improve cash flow and, of course, stability in the banking system across the states. 1950, we get the first sort of iteration of the bank card or credit card. It was called the diner's card. It was kind of the first one to become widely accepted or adopted. And then in 1971, Nixon takes the gold standard away, and that's a pretty big deal because now money is no longer redeemable and it is no longer pegged to commodity. And that was supposed to be a temporary measure as well. That was never supposed to stay. 1981 is generally considered the birthday of the internet, and then that brings us to 2009 and to present day, when Bitcoin was created. The first Bitcoin block was mined. So fiat money, a couple things about fiat money. It's non-redeemable, which means you can't redeem it for any equivalent commodity. It's based completely on trusting your government or whoever authorizes the money. Tis the name legal tender by government decree. It's inflationary, so the government can print it, because it's not pegged to anything. And then it's central, so obviously there's the Federal Reserve, and they manage all of that stuff. It's controlled and political, so as we kind of saw in Canada, the truckers' bank accounts were able to be shut down, and then it's political. It can be used for political purposes. People can decide whether you participate in the system or not, depending on where you're from. And we see in the case of like Afghanistan, when all those banks shut down, we see that people were no longer able to get their money, and that's a part of a problem with a centralized system. What inflation looks like, we can see up here, $100 billion Zimbabwe dollars. That's an actual bill. It's equivalent to about $200 today in Canadian dollars, and that's mostly because it's a collector's item now. So, super inflation's bad. It takes away your purchasing power, right? So inflation in 2022, Canada has announced as of this month, Canada's at 8%, 8.1%, and US is at 9.1%. So that's almost 10% of your buying power that's disappeared this year. Oh, backwards. And then we get to Bitcoin. What's different about Bitcoin? So Bitcoin was invented or released in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto. He took different technologies that were kind of already existing, such as public key cryptography, proof of work systems, and so on, to create a peer-to-peer money, and that's called Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was the first kind of real cryptocurrency that worked because it solved the double spend problem, and that's what's important. There was previous online currencies or internet currencies, as they're often called, or internet tokens, but what they weren't able to do was solve this double spend problem, which Satoshi was able to do with the combination of all these really cool technologies. And of course, it's encrypted using SHA-256 as well, which is one of the most intense things you can do. So Bitcoin is a software application, a ledger, and a computer network that digitally replicates the properties and function of money. It's trustless. You don't have to trust anyone. You know that once your Bitcoin is sent and they have received it, that's it, right? There's no intermediaries to trust. You're not letting someone else hold your money for you. You don't have to trust anyone with your money if you don't want to. It's anti-inflationary. There's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be made. It's apolitical. It's a computer program. It's not going to judge you by your haircut or what shoes you're wearing, which is really cool. It's also one of the most secure networks on the face of the planet because of its diverse network and its decentralized nature. And it's also global. You can send Bitcoin to anyone in the world. It's within 10 minutes. It's incredible. And I think that is becoming more and more important in this day and age where commerce is done all over the planet. Anyone can start an online store and sell to Australia, to Africa to Greece to wherever, right? So that's really, really important as well, and really cool. So a couple reasons that Bitcoin's really good. Bitcoin is a better cash system. Again, talking about sending money across the world, you can send $60 million in 10 minutes for 60 cents. That's pretty incredible to do. I would challenge anyone to find me a bank that could do that for that cheap and that quick. Probably not going to happen. And of course, if you add the Lightning Network integration into that, the regular network might be a little bit expensive for, say, something like a coffee, right? But once you add that layer 2 to the Bitcoin network, it becomes, quicker than even the Visa network. It can do more transactions per second than, all of the major networks. It's, just as secure, and of course it's based on Bitcoin, so it's peer-to-peer. You know that once you have it, right? So it's pretty amazing stuff. Bitcoin could be a better store of value. Obviously, it's anti-inflationary by design. It's engineered to be anti-inflationary. Again, with there only being 21 million Bitcoins that can ever be made, by nature, it's anti-inflationary, so it does the opposite, right? Whereas with fiat, we print. Bitcoin, it can't be done, and it takes a lot of work to do. So it's censorship resistant, it protects the people, and it's also accessible to anyone with an internet connection and a device. So it's a super solid system. But saying all of that, what makes a good money? What makes Bitcoin good in comparison to other monies? There's 6 principles about what makes a good money. So there's durability. Bitcoin is the most secure network on the planet. It's very durable that way. You can destroy your device, and as long as you have your private keys, you can restore it, right? So you can travel anywhere into the world and be able to restore your Bitcoin if anything happens. It's very durable. And just a note on that as well, it would take a crazy amount of shutting down internet and computers to destroy the network as well. Again, because of its decentralized nature, there's no single point of failure. Portability, all you need is the internet or your private key. So as long as you have your cell phone with you or have access to a computer, in theory, you can use Bitcoin, you can bring it anywhere with you. Divisibility, so whereas an American dollar or any other dollar can be devised into 1 cent denominations, Bitcoin's divisible to the 100th millionth, or that's also called 1 Satoshi, or 8 decimal places. And uniformity, every Satoshi is perfectly uniform. 1 sat equals 1 sat, and that is fungibility. 1 equals 1. $1 can always be traded for $1. It doesn't matter where you are, 1 is 1. Limited supply, so again, talking about inflation and stuff like that, there's only 21 million that can ever be made. So it's got a very limited supply, and that also increases in difficulty to get that supply as time goes on. Acceptability, so there's a couple ways that we can look at acceptability as like a monetary thing. One is that, do people have the ability to accept it? And 2, are people accepting it? So currently there's about 200 million Bitcoin users estimated out in the world today. So there's that's a lot of people, and it's only growing. The market cap is continuously growing. Interest is growing with the technology. So, Bitcoin's not quite there on that front, but it's getting there very, very quickly. Countries are now adopting it, such as El Salvador, which is really cool. And so that's one form of looking at it. The other form is, can anyone accept it? And again, that goes back to, who can access Bitcoin, and again, that's anyone with an internet connection and a device of any sort, right? So we're going to look at this chart of Bitcoin versus fiat versus gold, and we're going to notice some of these terms coming back up again. So verifiable, Bitcoin, high. Again, it's immutable. It's one of the securest networks possible, and through its proof of work, it's easily verifiable, and you can also, with people's public addresses, verify certain aspects. There's lots of automation that you can do on that front as well. Fungible, 1 sat is always 1 sat. It's always equivalent. It's the exact same thing. Portable, Bitcoin is also high. And then again, we kind of look at gold. We got moderate, right? gold, you have to have testing kits, stuff like that. It can take a little bit, it takes a lot more effort to verify. You know, it's not just putting in an address, you have to do certain things to verify gold. Same thing with fiat, you know, there's all kinds of security protocols built into it, but it can still be faked. So they're all fungible. 1 ounce of gold is 1 ounce of gold. $1 is $1. I would argue that, you know, between nations' currencies, it's obviously not fungible, but generally speaking, $1 is $1. Bitcoin's highly portable, again, as long as you have that private key and stuff, right? Gold's low. Obviously, you're not going to carry around a bag of gold with you to pay for stuff. I mean, gold is heavy. It's one of the heaviest elements, right? So definitely not very portable. Fiat, we have credit cards nowadays. Same thing as kind of carrying your phone. You can also just have it in your phone too. So, and then of course we got durable. Bitcoin, I would argue, is pretty high durability, but you know the network's still pretty young, and if we're talking about price discovery, then it's highly volatile. So you know durability might vary. Gold high, you know, you have to melt it down with forges. It's pretty self-explanatory. Fiat, same thing. You know, the economy's collapsed, but also paper money you can just tear up, right? Unless it's directly in your bank account. Divisible, Bitcoin's easy. Fiat, moderate, self-explanatory. So these are kind of some of the things. Now, the one that I like to look down at the bottom here, openly programmable and decentralized. Of course, Bitcoin rates the highest in those. Gold's moderate. We do have regulations around gold, and it's hard to get. But it's no programmability. Fiat kind of is at the bottom here with neither of which. So that brings us into wallets. We kind of understand where Bitcoin came from, what the monetary system is, what some of the differences are between the two networks, and that kind of brings us into wallets and how do you get involved into Bitcoin, how do you buy it, how do you hold it, and so on and so forth. So there's a couple different types of wallets, and just as you need a place to store your money, whether it's in your bank account or some people store cash under their pillow, Captain Cook buried it somewhere out in God knows where, you need a place to store your Bitcoin, right? And so that's what we call our wallet. And your wallet is a way that you can interact with the network, and we have several different types of wallets. Generally, I categorize the wallets in 3 different types. Cold storage, hot wallet, and a custodial wallet. So the cold wallets are the most secure form, the most secure way of storing your cryptocurrency. They keep your private key away from the internet, and they're always disconnected, which is the safest way to keep your Bitcoin, because if someone gets your private key, they're able to take it away from you. Hot wallet, second most secure. So the difference between hot and cold, obviously, is that a hot wallet is connected to the internet. Your private keys are generated on that specific device, which in theory allows your device open to threat. So if someone hacks your device, they can get your private keys, even though, you know, so it's a little bit less secure because it is on the internet. Even if it is encrypted, it's attached there, right? And then a custodial wallet, least secure in my opinion. There's lots of great services out there. They all come with pros and cons, but you're trusting someone with the custodial service. So that kind of takes away from that trustless nature of Bitcoin.
Can you explain that a little bit more, just that custodial wallet, just a little bit more?
For sure. So a custodial wallet would be something like ShakePay or blockchain.com. They have your private keys. You don't actually physically have your own private keys. So they're in charge of that. And what happens is your private keys give you access to your coin, right? So if they get hacked or if they go bankrupt or something like that, kind of like we saw with Celsius, your currency's gone and it's going to be really, really hard to get back ever, right? So that's kind of why self-custody is the most secure way. Now there's reasons why you might use a custodial wallet. You know, it's easy to back up because you have your name and password, so you can log in if you forget your information, whereas if you lose your private key, it's done, right? It's into the void and you can't get it. But again, there's there's that more exposure to risk that way, right? The more convenient it is, typically the less secure it is. Does that kind of answer the question?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Right on. No worries. So what makes a good wallet? Reputable. That's the most important one. If you don't have a reputable wallet, you know, it's no good, right? You can't trust it. Secure. Obviously, the more secure it is, the better. Passwords, pins, encryptions, passphrases. Obviously, the ability to back up your wallet is one of the most important features. Being able to have that 12 to 24 word seed phrase, which we'll get into in a minute, but having that ability to back up your wallet, your private key, so you can access it at any case if you damage your device or lose your phone or, you know, something gets stolen. Compatibility. So being compatible with the latest sort of wallet standards and address standards is hugely important, but also being compatible with Bitcoin or any other tokens or coins that you might want to carry in the future is a huge one as well. And if you can't send to anyone else's wallet, then it's not really a great wallet. Usability, is it easy to use? Is it overly complicated? Now this obviously varies on your technical skill. Easy wallets might not be for everyone. Hard wallets aren't for everyone either. Some people need more customizability for your custom use cases, whereas some people just need to be able to send, receive, and hold. So that greatly varies depending on you, right? And so that's, you know, that's largely just like trying on a shirt. It's really important to see if it fits, right? It fits for you. You're not going to try a shirt on someone else and say, yeah, it's good, because it might not fit you.
So you just kind of come here and not tell you guys kind of what we think we're doing and stuff, and then you guys would figure out a wallet? Is that how it kind of works?
Yeah, so we can help you decide on a wallet depending on what you're doing, right? We can recommend stuff. Ultimately, it's important to do your own research, but we can definitely guide you into the way. Like if you're a beginner, you know, typically I recommend Exodus as a wallet, just because it's super easy to use, the layout's really nice, and away you go, right? But if you came in and said, you know, I have all these coins I need to store, and I want it to be a cold wallet, you know, we'll definitely help you decide which ones it's going to work, right?
Do you guys do that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We can help with that.
There's wallets that are more designed for NFTs and DeFi rather than Bitcoin, or, you know, so it really depends on what you're into. So
What's the NFT wallet?
Cool wallet.
Cool Wallet can store NFTs, a Cool Wallet Pro.
Yeah.
The SecuX can store NFTs now. They have a specific NFT wallet that displays them too on the actual cold wallet, which is super cool. Yeah. So there's Elapal I think is waiting to release an update on that as well. So there's lots of wallets that can do it and that are specifically designed for it now too, which is really cool. Privacy is another big one. If they're selling your data, if they're asking for a bunch of personal information when it doesn't need to have it, it's something to keep in mind. That's also a really important part of wallets as well. Sometimes a bit of KYC is needed, especially if someone else is holding your money, because there's regulations around that. But typically, the least information that you can give, the better. And obviously, that they're not selling your data to people, or that they don't have access to your private keys and stuff like that. Features is another really important thing. Is it going to do what you want to do, right? That kind of goes hand in hand with the usability. You know, it's more about the things that you want though, and how it looks, and do you like the way it feels? And then price. Hot wallets are typically free, but then, you know, once you get into cold storage, they can cost money, right? So it's really important to know what fits within your budget. Is it going to do the things that you can do? Price is important to everyone, so.
What's an example of like from lowest to high, like that most people use? Like what's a common price?
So they start, like you can get a SecuX W10 for about $88, and then they go up to about $400, sometimes even more dollars, right? So good middle of the road is between $100 to $200 is kind of the median price, depending on if you want the touchscreen, extra storage, and all the fancy features typically. So, but yeah, $88, you know, so If it hurts to lose, I recommend you get a cold wallet. If you're storing $10, probably not going to recommend you to get a hardware wallet. If you're just playing around, a regular hot wallet will do just fine too for the meantime, right? But once you start building up, once you get more used to that type of stuff, then it's recommended definitely cold storage is the way to go. And it depends too, right? If you're using it a lot, a cold wallet might be pretty cumbersome. So, you know, what I personally do is I had them set up, you know, my cold wallet's my savings account, my hot wallet's my checking account for stuff that I'm using, you know, more often, and custodial wallets I use rarely, but sometimes there's a need for them to get certain stuff, right? So we were kind of talking about sending, receiving public keys and private keys. So just as important as hodling your coins is the ability to send and receive, because money would be useless if all you can do is keep it in your pockets and you can never get it out, right? So it's really important to have that ability, and that's built into almost every single wallet, if not every single wallet out there. So good, you know, just remember, good money needs to be acceptable and portable as well, right? So here we see sort of a visualization of public and private keys. So your public key, anyone can use. Anyone can see it. It's transparent. It's auditable. So someone can look up your address on the public ledger and see, you know, how much has been sent, how much has been received. Your private key is the most important. That's one that must be kept secret at all costs. Don't share it with anyone. Should always be handwritten down. Never in a device. Never on iCloud. Not Google. Nowhere. It's really, really important that this private key is always kept safe.
Okay, public, anybody can see that?
Anyone can see it. You can give that to anyone. The worst that they can do is
But
send
they
you
can
money.
See how much money goes to your
It's
account?
literally the address.
Yeah.
But like they'll see how much money goes to your account?
Yep. Anyone can, technically.
Holy shit.
But the worst that they can do is put coins into your wallet.
But like that's totally okay, but like, just cause like they can see, like, so like,
But they also don't know, like, whose address that is, I guess,
Yeah.
right? Unless you, like,
There's no personal identification attached to that address on the
Right.
blockchain.
It's just
now we're in the K, now we're talking KKK.
And it's 3 domains, so you can make 1,000.
Yeah.
you make a
Make
thousand.
10,000, so.
Yeah.
Use one every time you give someone, you
Yeah.
have a new one.
So for privacy, your best bet is to use address once, and that's it. So you can generate new public addresses
Wow.
all the time.
They'll still figure it out, though, it's just harder.
It's just makes it hard. There's still ways to get around it, but
You guys are smart, guys, holy smokes.
Like, on a device, it's the device that manages that in the background, right?
Yeah.
If you have a hardware wallet and you generate 10 transactions and you put $100 in each address, you can scan one address, all you're gonna see is $100. But when you're spending, the wallet manages that in the background and can send the $100 in one transaction. It just gathers the 10 wallet addresses together and sends it out as one. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background.
So, yeah, and you know, there's different wallets that will generate hundreds of addresses if you want. They'll, you know, which is again one of those things to consider when choosing a wallet, right? That's really important to know. So the public and private keys, how do they work? What are they? Why do you need them? Why are they the way they are? So this analogy works really good for explaining this stuff. So imagine you have a Dropbox. In this case, we have this one here. There's no address on it. There's no lock on it. Anyone can open it. Anyone can put stuff into it. It's pretty useless. It's a box with a mouth, pretty much. So then your first problem is people need to find out where to put stuff into the box, right? So if you have 1,000 boxes out in public, they have to see, okay, which box am I sending to? Otherwise, it would just be a mess, right? And so then that's when you get the public address. Anyone can see it. It's written on the face of every box so that people know where to put stuff. But then we saw that problem of, well, anyone can open that box. And that's where the private key comes in. So the private key is a long alphanumeric string of code, similar to the public key. It's typically a lot longer, and what it does is it locks that box, right, and gives access to that box. So the public address, everyone can put stuff into the box. They know it's a box, or if it's your friend, they know it's your box when you give them that address. So anyone can go and put stuff into it, right? It's out in public, so in theory, someone could drop $5 in there if they wanted to, right? But what's most important is the private key, and again, this is why it's so important to protect it, is because that keeps the box locked. So not anyone can open the box.
I like that infographic a lot, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so hard to have people visualize
Yeah.
the technology.
Okay, so we understand the wallet. We understand kind of what the keys are and why we need a wallet. It's to hold our crypto, it's to send and to receive, it's to interact with the network, it's our way into the system. So a couple things to keep in mind and a couple tips. Not your keys, not your coin. So protect your private keys at all costs, right? Again, that goes into that custodial wallet situation, you know, like blockchain.com or again ShakePay or crypto.com. Those are all custodial wallets. They all have your private keys. So if they go down, your coin is gone. So it's really important to keep your own private keys and not to share them anyone. Never publicly tell anyone how much Bitcoin you have. These are, you know, it's a pretty general thing. You don't walk down the street and say, hey, I got $100. Who's going to come mug me, right? So obviously don't disclose that on any social media either, right? Flexing just gets you in trouble. Every non-custodial wallet has a visible private key. Sometimes that's, or most of the time nowadays, that's translated into a 12 or 20 word seed phrase. So when you back up your wallet's going to give you 12 words, 24 words. There's some more obscure wallet types that have 18 or 25 words. But generally, as a rule of thumb, it will be 12 or 24. And it's really important that those be handwritten down, no pictures, no photocopies, nothing along those lines. The person that controls the keys obviously controls the coin, right? Again, just reinforcing that idea that don't share them to anyone, not even your wives or husbands or whoever. All wallets other than paper have that backup function. They'll show that to you, and you'll get your seed that way. And they'll be generated typically within the device, or sometimes you can generate them externally as well. All wallet apps, computer wallets, hardware wallets can be restored in the event of you losing your keys. So if you have that private key and someone steals your phone, but luckily you have a PIN on it, what you can do is you can back it up into a new device. And then you have all your Bitcoin again with those 12 or 24 words or the private key. What that means for you is that your crypto is pretty much always safe. Obviously, if someone stole your device, get that crypto into a new private key, a new address right away. Don't take any chances. All Bitcoins can be stolen very easily if anyone gets those seeds. There's a theme here in this slide. Private keys, private keys, private keys, right? People lose them, people write them on scrap papers and, you know, throw them out. There's 1,000 things that can happen to them, which is why we like to really, really emphasize that, right? You hear those horror stories like a guy who threw out his hard drive into the, you know, dumpster, and 10 years later, Bitcoin's worth, you know, $32,000 and the world's, and he's gone mad, right? Thinking about how he threw that hard drive out. Again, just access to the private keys. So some tips on protecting your private keys. Always handwrite them. Handwrite a second copy, store it in a safety deposit box or someone you really, really, really trust's house. If you can, put it in a sealed envelope, or, you know, even in its own metal container if you can, or something to keep that from being seen. So if, God forbid, something happens to your house, you're still able to restore your keys and you didn't lose your private key, back up the only copy that you have. So 2 copies are better than 1. Never take a picture, never store it on your phone or computer or cloud storage. no Google Docs. Do not photocopy. Again, that's just anything away from technology. Store written words in safe places, obviously. Some people hollow out books, some people have safes in their house. You know, just as long as you can remember where it is, because again, if you lose it, you're SOL. Okay, so you got your wallet, you know how the private public keys work, you know which one you can share, you know which one to keep to yourself, you know why it's that way. So how do you get Bitcoin now, right? We got everything we need, now we can start thinking about, okay, let's get some Bitcoin. So there's a couple ways. 3 major ways to buy or sell. Now, obviously there's a caveat to this, and that's mining. We're not going to cover mining too much in this presentation, other than showing you how a transaction works, just because that's a whole other bag of worms. So in this one, we're going to just say, you know, you're looking to buy or sell Bitcoin, or just get a hold of it. And so there's online exchanges or platforms, ShakePay, you know, CoinSquare, Index. They're great platforms. They're the least expensive, but they're hard to get money into. A lot of banks right now, they don't love cryptocurrency. They're going to block transactions. They're going to make it hard for you to get money into those exchanges, right? They are also high KYC. Some people like that, some people don't. Obviously, it depends on your tolerance, what you're doing with it. But you know, privacy isn't something that privacy isn't a bad thing, right? But they got high KYC typically. So then there's Bitcoin ATMs. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're the easiest to use, right? You go to the machine, you put in $1, it gets sent straight to your wallet, and you're done, right? Within about 5 minutes, you have Bitcoin in your wallet, and you're off to the races, which is really nice. They're cash only, so you're not worrying about a bank freezing your transaction to your favorite exchange. And then they're medium KYC, right? So we do have KYC, we take it very seriously, and we take, you know, our customer safety very seriously, but there's just a different level of KYC than the exchanges themselves. And then there's peer-to-peer. So low KYC or no KYC, you don't have to know who someone is for them to just sell you Bitcoin. They're high risk, especially if you're dealing with someone you don't know. You could send them Bitcoin, or they could take your money and not send you the Bitcoin, or it could be a shady in 1,000 different ways. It could be stolen. It could be counterfeit money. There's 1,000 different things, right? And they're variable costs. Someone might charge you nothing if they're a close friend or family. Some people might charge you 30-40% if they wanted to, just because maybe you don't want the KYC, or maybe they don't really want to sell it, right?
They wanna rip you off.
Yeah, or they want to rip you off. That's totally possible too, right? So peer-to-peer, high risk, and it's got a variable cost to it, but it's low KYC. I always say that there's different uses for everything, right? You know, you don't go into your bank to deposit a $5 bill. Not something that you probably do, right? And so these are what we often call off-ramps and on-ramps. They're a very, very important part of the Bitcoin network and how you get involved into the Bitcoin network, right? They're 2 separate systems, and that's kind of why we call them the on-ramp, off-ramp, or off-ramp. So this is just a visualization of how that works. So of course we got the BTM, which someone can go, they have Bitcoin, they need some cash, they just sell it for cash, just like any other ATM. They can get off the Bitcoin network, right? Or maybe they want to get in, so they buy some Bitcoin so they can start participating in some DeFi stuff, or maybe they just want to hold it. You can do that way, right? And then there's exchanges. They serve sort of the same purpose. You can get into the crypto world or the crypto universe, or you can get out of it. And of course that varies depending, right? You might take a little bit out, you might take it all out, depending on who you are and what you do. You can also work for Bitcoin to participate in the Bitcoin economy, or sell stuff for Bitcoin, or do anything for Bitcoin, right? So we kind of see that e-commerce there. And then, of course, the financial institutions are probably somewhere in the middle of all of these. But other than that, Bitcoin can be a totally circular economy.
It's also note that it's the network that's never been hacked.
That too.
That the Bitcoin network has never been hacked. It's the on-ramps and off-ramps that have. Because if they're holding the private key on behalf of the customer, it's easy to hack a centralized server at an exchange, right? To get your Bitcoin. So it's the on-ramps and off-ramps. So when you hear the news reports, Bitcoin got hacked for $400 million. Well, no, it wasn't the network. It was this exchange that was holding $400 million on behalf of their clients, right? So,
Yeah.
just making that distinction between the network and the parties, the infrastructure is different. Is important.
100%. Just in case you guys online didn't hear that, Bitcoin's network itself has never been hacked, but the on-ramps, off-ramps have. And so that's where the biggest vulnerability is in terms of that. So we got some Bitcoin, we bought it, we have our wallet set up, everything's good to go. What's the next step? Where do we go from here? That's doing your first transaction. So how do you send and receive Bitcoin? It's a fairly straightforward process, but it's a little bit counterintuitive if you haven't done it before. People in the States will have a lot easier time because they have Cash App and they have Strike and they have these type of apps that are already using QR codes and are actually based on Bitcoin's network anyways. But it's transparent to you, so you guys don't see the Bitcoin. You just think you're sending $1 in the case of Strike, but actually what's happening is you're sending Bitcoin and they're receiving Bitcoin, but then it's transferred transparently to $1. But with, in Canada we have e-transfer, so it's a little bit different system. So using a public address is easy. Every wallet includes one, and it comes with a QR code typically as well for easy scanning. Generally, I recommend that you use the QR code as often as possible, and always verify your address once the input's done. The reason I say use the QR code as often as possible, it's far less likely to make a mistake than you typing it in manually, or copy and paste is your best friend as well if you're on the same device. So if you're sending, what do? You scan whoever's public address. It's going to input their wallet info in there for you. You're going to enter the amount that you wish to pay, and in some wallets you can adjust the fee. If you're a beginner, I don't typically recommend adjusting that fee. You can get your transaction stuck if you don't know what you're doing. But if you're more savvy and if you played around with it a little bit, definitely you can lower that fee if you're okay waiting. You can raise it up if you need it right snap quick. And there's a reason for that, which we will kind of get into why that's a thing. And then you hit send. That's it. You input the amount you want to send them, you have their address, you hit send. They're going to get it in about 10 minutes time. If it's Lightning, you'll get it within 30 seconds. So if you're receiving, it's the complete opposite process. You're going to send them your public address. Now you can copy and paste that, you can screenshot the QR code, you can show them the QR code if you're in person. And then just wait for the confirmations. They'll send it to you and you just wait for your confirmations. And then you have Bitcoin. So this is just sort of a visualization here. So if you're sending Bitcoin, you're going to send it to their public address. Again, that's that opening in the Dropbox that anyone has access to, and then that's going to go, and that can be done by either scanning or putting in the address, the public address, which looks like this. So some tips on handling your Bitcoin. If you're unsure of the sending or receiving process, send a small amount first. Send a couple dollars just to make sure that it goes through and the other party receives it. Always know your counterparty. Don't just send to anyone. Bitcoin is essentially virtual cash. If I give any one of you cash and you decide that you just want to take off running with it, I'm not getting that cash back. Same thing with Bitcoin. The only difference is they might be on the other side of the planet. So there's absolutely zero chance of getting it back. There's no way to reverse a transaction. Understand that if you're private keys are lost, the Bitcoins are gone forever. We're reinforcing that point because it's super, super important. So that's, okay, so now we've gone through your wallet, or the history. We have a wallet set up. You've bought in your Bitcoin. It's now in your wallet. You've received it. You have it. You've sent a little bit to yourself to try it out. But how does this all work? It's not magic money. It's not made out of thin air. It's not nothing, right? It has to work some way. So the first couple things to understand is that Bitcoin runs on a very rigid set of rules. These rules are hard-coded and the software, and the only way to ever change these rules is if 51% of the network decides to. That's all the nodes and all the miners have to agree to change and implement those changes. So it has to be a pretty good reason to change it, in other words, right? And keep in mind, it's decentralized, so not all of these people work together either, right? These are all individual people or individual mining companies. And so a 51% attack, as it's also known, is very unlikely. The production cap of Bitcoin is only 21 million. The block reward is fixed every 210,000 blocks, and then it is cut in half. So not only is Bitcoin capped at 21 million, it gets harder and harder to mine, and that 210,000 blocks is approximately every 4 years, and that's because of the difficulty adjustment. So Bitcoin will automatically adjust to how many computers are on the network. If some computers drop off the network and it's at a top, really, really hard difficulty, it's going to lower that difficulty a bit to keep those block times at approximately 10 minutes. Now, obviously, that depends. A block size is 1.5 megabytes. That's roughly 2,500 transactions per block. And a block is mined every every 10 minutes. So Bitcoin in the blockchain. Bitcoin is an application that runs on blockchain technology, on a blockchain network. It's a distributed ledger or database where every transaction is recorded and publicly available. You can go to blockexplorer.com and you can see every single transaction that's happening on the network at all times, and see how much is being sent and where it's being sent to. It's open and decentralized. Anyone can partake in it. Anyone can run a node on their computer. Anyone can start mining on any computer. It might not be profitable to do so, but it still serves an important part. I recommend to everyone, if you're interested in learning these types of things or really interested in learning the technological side of things, try running your own node. It's a great project to do, and will give you a lot of insight and stuff. Bitcoin has that limited supply, and it's divisible by 8 digits, 100 million. It uses thousands of computers connected around the world, so that's miners and nodes. And so here we have a visual of how Bitcoin works. So we have Buddy here. He opens his Bitcoin wallet, and this is what's happening when you send, right? So you're sending to your friend for, maybe you owe them lunch money, and they said, yeah, we'll take Bitcoin, that's fine. So you're going to open your wallet, and you're going to scan their address, and you're going to send. So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to obviously enter the fees like we talked about and the amount, and then click send. And that's what you see. It's super transparent. You're not going to notice any of this other stuff. This is all transparent to you, right? But you can look at it if you want. So then your wallet's going to use your private keys to sign that transaction. And then it's going to connect to whatever node your wallet is connected to. And it's going to broadcast that information out. And so that's when it's in the mempool now, right? And that's waiting for the miners to be picked up. So when we're talking about setting your fee too low, what happens is before your transaction is mined and put into a block to be verified, it's in what's called the mempool. Now the miners are going to pick the highest reward because they get paid the most, right? So they're going to pick the highest rewards, and of course that's that. So then the miners include it in with the 2,500 other transactions that are in queue, and then it hashes them up. It does the work, what's called the proof of work protocol. It solves an algorithm, and then once whatever miner solves that proof of work first. It's a math equation, and they all have to, and so whichever one solves it first gets that reward. And then that's when new Bitcoins are created, and currently the block reward is 6.25. And then of course that's broadcast out, and then it's wrapped up, the transaction is propagated by all the nodes again, and then that's your first confirmation, right? So now your friend would see your first confirmation, right? Typically, we don't consider a Bitcoin actually confirmed until 6 confirmations, because that's when it becomes so incredibly impossible to change that it's, you know, it's confirmed, right? But 1 to 2 confirmations, you know, especially among friends, is fine.
Like every new block is a new confirmation.
Yeah.
So visualize one block, the transactions are locked in that block, and it's confirmed. When that is locked, a new block is created, and everything that it happens again with new transactions. So, and then so that first transaction has now been confirmed once and now twice. So every new block, it's always a new confirmation. If that helps.
It does, yeah, thank you.
So why do we call it a blockchain, and what are the other confirmations? So as per mentioned, we have our first block, right? Our first transaction that we did, that's in you know, we'll call that transaction 1, right? So it's gone through all of this, and now what's going to happen is someone else is going to do a transaction. And so now the transaction is going to be included into the header of the next block, and so that would be the second confirmation.
Sir, I didn't know you were gonna go there. I'm terribly sorry. He's explaining exactly what I should explain.
And then we get the third transaction, and of course all the information of the previous transactions are included in that header, right? So you would have the new header including the last transaction, and that way, that's why we call it a blockchain, right? Because it's 2,500 transactions here, that's included, and then that transaction ID is included in the header, so that the next time it's mined, that transaction is included in the header, and that way it's auditable by the nodes and verifiable, right? If you see this one and this one are mixed up, the nodes are going to say, okay, hey, what's going on here, right? Or if they suddenly see, you know, a transaction that doesn't belong here, they can say, well, that's not right either. And so the reason why Bitcoin is so hard to hack is, first off, this, right? This is what's called the consensus rule. So we have all this done, right? Now, keep in mind the computers are solving that mathematical equation, and they all kind of have to do that for each new block, right? So now if someone faked a transaction, what would happen is you get another blockchain started, essentially, right? But you only have one person who's agreeing to this, or maybe you have a couple computers agreeing to it. But the problem is, in order for everyone to gain consensus on this, it would have to add up with everyone else's. So you'd have one person who propagates it fakely into the blockchain, and you kind of create a split. Now you have one or a small amount of computers all trying to verify all of those. But on the other hand, the regular blockchain with the most blocks, and that's an important thing to note as well, is that the consensus is based off the computer that's done the most work, right? So this blockchain has the most work done on it, and this one has, you know, maybe for the first couple blocks or first couple confirmations, they're able to mine that block every single time, but it's going to be pretty hard to do against, you know, 100,000 different computers, right, doing all the work. So this blockchain, ultimately, the real one, is going to have the consensus, because they have all the computers working on the regular blocks when this person has injected a fake block, right? So you create the split, and in order for someone to do a fake transaction, they would probably have to have 51% of the network, right? So they have to have 51% of every computer to fake a single transaction, right? Which is, you know, with how fast Bitcoin's growing, almost nearly impossible to do. That's where the proof of work concept comes in.
The longest chain wins, and the longest chain tells you which is the most trusted chain.
Yeah. And So, you know, one computer doing work on its own is never going to keep up, right? It's, you know, me trying to outwork everyone in this room, it's just not going to happen, right? Might be for the first 10 minutes, but. Okay, so you've received your Bitcoin, now what? So we've gone through the whole process. You've sent your transaction, you've received your transaction. Now what can you do with your Bitcoin? You can spend it. So there's lots of online retailers that accept Bitcoin. You can use it, you can send it to friends, you can start your own circular economy. Every time someone buys lunch, they get Bitcoin instead of fiat. You can do whatever you want with it, right? You can hold it or hodl it. Obviously, Bitcoin is deflationary and it's still new and still growing, so it may increase in value. Or at least keep up with inflation as the, you know, the hopes, right? You can swap it for other currencies. So once you're invested into, you know, the cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, it's easy to partake in the rest of the system, right? You can sell it. So if you've held it for a very long time and you decide that you don't want it anymore or you need some cash, you can sell it. And then that's where you get, you know, Bitcoin day traders, because it is a highly volatile market. Some people choose to do that. Some people choose to hold it. It's widely looked at as an investment right now. It's classified by the government as an asset, much like a house. You can build with it. So you can actually build stuff using Bitcoin, or, you know, you can program with it. You can create really cool stuff. An example of that was the color coins, which came before NFTs. They were original NFTs, and they were based off of blockchain, because when you sign a message, you can actually include metadata in there. So it can actually be used to build stuff on. It's not, and that's where the idea of Ethereum kind of came from as a smart contract, which is meant to do that. Bitcoin, a little less, but you know, you get Lightning, for example, is a great example of what people are building on top of Bitcoin.
What are you guys doing?
I model.
Like obviously you get.
Yeah.
I trade it lots.
You do it, and what you
I build on Ethereum.
do it?
Yeah, I said, we all do something different.
I'm a hodler. I dollar cost average, and I just hold.
Really?
When we went to the conference in Miami, the entire conference, you were able to pay with Bitcoin. So we all had Lightning wallets, and we put $300 or $400 into the Lightning wallet, and literally we bought a beer and, you know, sent, you know, 1,500 satoshis, you know, instantly, and you walk away with your beer. There's no Visa, MasterCard, Interact, no banks involved.
I just want to take this moment to see if anyone on watching our live stream has any questions. But yeah, so that's Bitcoin, intro to Bitcoin. That's how it works. That's where you go to. That's the history of it. That's where it came from, and that's everything. So yeah, I mean, if anyone has any other questions. Oh, I was going to demonstrate Lightning with Dale, but he disappeared. Does anyone want to demonstrate Lightning with me? Does anyone have a Moon wallet?
Yeah, I got mine, I think.
Okay.
Let me just see where it is.
I've actually never done a Lightning transaction, to be honest.
Well, I haven't used it long enough, so that's re-downloading, but give me 2 seconds here.
Well, that's the best.
It's the easiest, because it's on-chain, like you don't have to move it between on-chain and Lightning. You just send the Lightning from your Bitcoin balance, basically.
All right, so this is a Lightning transaction. It's actually faster than a debit transaction. I just shared a video the other day on that.
Yeah,
It's faster than the card. So with Lightning,
Can I come up there?
sorry?
Yeah, come on if you want, yeah. So I'll send it, do you want me to add an invoice here for like 10 cents?
Do $1.
Okay.
200, you cheap fuck.
Okay, $1 Canadian. So I went to my Lightning, I don't know if they want to see this here, but
Yeah.
so I went to my Lightning wallet and I hit receive, and then I entered an amount, so $1.
What?
So-
Let me do this here. There we go.
Okay, so yeah, so I set up on Moon Wallet here, a Lightning invoice basically, which for $1. So anyone that scans this with a Lightning wallet will instantly send me $1 here. So
Jesus.
so
I'm gonna click send here. I have preloaded my wallet, and I'm gonna scan that. I'm gonna say thanks for coming by.
so you should see right away here. It just pop up. But it's
All right, so I'm about to click confirm note, and I'm gonna click send. That's it, and he's already got it.
Boom.
Jesus.
Faster than a credit card transaction.
Yeah,
Anyways, that's
that's the Lightning network built on top of it.
and that's the Lightning Network, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, guys, thanks for joining in. Thanks to our future viewers, and thanks to everyone for coming by.
Thank you.